On this episode of Purposely Curious, we talk to David Clarke from Missing the Point podcast, who also works as a commercial production manager, as he enlightens us on what may have gone wrong on the set of Alec Baldwin's movie Rust. Sadly, cinematographer Halyna Hutchins lost her life in this tragedy, and one other person was also injured. We hope that this tragedy will never repeat itself in the entertainment industry. So get ready as this episode starts now. Hello, everyone. On this episode, I have David Clarke from Missing the Point podcast, and he is also a commercial production manager. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Hello to the Purposely Curious audience.
Yes, it's an array of weird people. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding, but in a positive light.
Yeah. I'm actually I feel like I'm a fan of the show first.
Oh.
And now I get to be on the show. It's what an experience. I mean, we've been trying to do this forever.
Yeah.
So we got it going.
Yeah. Thank you for finally meeting with me.
I know.
But yeah, we've been trying to for a minute. So crazy hectic schedules for everyone.
I know. We got it though. We're here. We're doing it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So I wanted to see, do you want to talk about your podcast first?
Yeah. I mean, I do a sports podcast with some guys I went to college with. I think we're coming up on our 100th episode.
Wow.
So we do an episode a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's an evolving process, as you know, because there's 6 of us. It's nice that we can kind of split a lot of the responsibility, but we basically have one guy who does all the work, which is I feel like every group project you're ever in. There's always and it's not me. It's our producer, Craig. But, it's because I grew up and I went to college in New England. It's based on New England sports mostly. But we talk about everything and, we just kind of try to joke around and have a good time. It's just it's a fun one. I mean, obviously, listen to Purposely Curious, as you're already doing. But if you have the time and inclination, we're on all the platforms, after you get done with this episode. If you want to go, listen to some talk about the Boston Celtics,
So you guys cover all sports?
Yeah. The kind of the biggest stories we try to talk about and break down and offer our angles and opinions on it for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
But we have kind of a smorgasbord of fans too, because I'm a Chicago Bears fan. We have a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I think we offer different opinions and perspectives on different things around different leagues. The football season, football being the biggest, the NFL being the biggest sport in America these days, is crazy busy for us because there's just so much to talk about and there's so much going on. So right now we're humming.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna try, and we do fun game shows, trivia shows that I'll host. And games and all that kind of stuff, and that can be fun when all 6 of us get on the show. But yeah, it's a good time. It was a kind of a product of COVID. We all just started, I think this happened to a lot of people, where it's you start catching up and chatting with people you haven't connected with in a long time.
Yeah.
And we all sort of got together for a reunion show of a show we did in college, a radio show we all did together in college. And we were maybe we can do this. Maybe it's maybe we can turn this into a podcast. And now we have a merch store. It's I'm seeing it on t-shirts, and the name we came up with on t-shirts and stuff. Because originally we were the Sunday Night Sports Wrap, because I guess in college we would just always meet on Sundays and do this radio show. And we were kind of weirdly popular at our college. People liked us. People liked our show. So we were kind of confident coming into this. We were maybe we can do this. Maybe we can start a podcast and grow a listener base. And it's been good. More and more people are coming to check out the show. So it's nice.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them that are big now, they said that it really took a few years for them. It's like a snowball effect.
I think it's consistency is key. I think if you keep putting out shows and people, because say you didn't do a podcast, but you're looking for one, and you don't know anything about it and you're looking for one to listen to. If you look and see that it's sporadic, they did a show and then they did another show 5 months later. It's well, it's not consistent. So you can't build it into your routine when you're at the gym or, doing whatever you're doing. So I think I see your shows are very consistent. They come out and it's probably tougher for you because all of our content just happens for us. Sports just happen. So for you, because you're it's just different stuff you're curious about. I feel
it's hard.
Yeah,
sometimes.
It's harder to go find out what am I going to talk about this week, but you are seeming to manage it. So
I although I do have my moments where I'm panicking like, oh, it's been this, or I'm just tired. But the consistency is, I'm pretty consistent, but I'll try, if I'm really busy, at least put out 2 that month.
Right.
But yeah, consistency is key. Yeah.
No, it's a lot of fun though, and I think, the joke is like, wow, like everybody's got a podcast these days, but you got to try to stand out from everybody else, because I think it's like you're basically banking on yourself to be interesting and like kind of going like, people want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
It's so it's a strange thing.
That's the like weirdest thing too, because I'm doing it as a hobby, so I got a lot of advice on what I should do. Yeah. And I listened to all of it, considered it all, but then just said, no, I'm just doing it for myself.
Right.
So I feel like I have less expectations. Right. And I think maybe that's why I have consistent listeners.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really trying to please anyone.
Well, those vibes come through, I think.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, because like me and the Missing the Point guys, like we chat every day on like a Discord server or whatever, and like we fight all the time. Like we just bicker and fight about everything, and like that translates to content, you know what I mean? Because it's like we just disagree about so much shit naturally.
Especially in sports. That's good.
Yeah, so like that comes through, like that vibe comes through. People hear us, like people hear the tension underneath the surface bubbling over, you know what I mean? So I think it's probably the same for you. It's like people probably come here to listen to this like with that vibe in mind, that kind of this is nice, I'm curious about this too.
That's one of the feedback I got, is that I cover different stuff, so they like that. And then of course I have episodes that are like total like nobody liked it, or then I'll have episodes where it's like, I've noticed people like the murder timelines when I do that.
People love like true crime. I mean, I do
especially
too.
Women, we love that shit.
I know. I mean, I love it too. I feel like the first one was like, remember when like Serial came out and everybody was like, oh my god, like talking about it around the water cooler or whatever. But it's like, basically we love to listen to stories about people getting brutally murdered. That's like a favorite pastime of human beings. It's like a morbid curiosity, I suppose.
It's sad.
It is.
But I did want to have you on because as a commercial production manager, I'm sure you know a lot of people in the industry and the conversations of the Alec Baldwin shooting.
Yeah, I'm glad that's what we're talking about, because I have so much to say.
So obviously I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but it happened while they were filming a movie. Supposedly they thought they had blanks, and maybe that's something you can explain. But the point is, 2 people got shot. And 1 person died. And it's not the first time. But I think the last one, which was it Brandon Lee?
Brandon Lee, yeah.
I think people just assume that would be the last. From lessons learned. And
so it's, my experience with firearms on sets pretty much all comes from when my days in television. And I did a couple of seasons on a show about the Navy. It was called The Last Ship. So basically we shot machine guns on that show like once a week at least, filming big epic battle scenes or whatever. So we did like explosions, machine gun fire, pistol fire, like all this stuff. So I have some experience with this kind of area of filming. It doesn't happen as often in commercials. Like I have used prop guns in commercials, but very rarely do we like fire stuff, and because it's like, you watch TV, like, you're sitting watching a commercial. Marie Callender isn't going to try and sell you a pie based on like a machine gun like going off, but I do have some experience with it, and I also have a lot of family members, as you know, like in the industry, and essentially the difference between the Brandon Lee incident, and like that's something I've known about for years, because I grew up as like a huge Bruce Lee fan. I love that movie, The Crow, that he got killed on. It's just like it is a fun movie. It's like a sad, obviously, backstory. But what happened with that is the prop department on that job were trying to cut corners and save money. You're supposed to use different guns for different types of blank or cosmetic ammunition. They weren't doing that. So a piece of shrapnel from either a blank or a dummy round or something got stuck in the chamber. They loaded another bullet in there, a blank bullet, which does have a charge, in order to like maybe see a muzzle flash or to make a noise or whatever it is. And that fired the piece of shrapnel out, hit him in the stomach. And the problem there was they thought he was like just still acting, because he was like supposed to get shot in the scene. So he didn't receive medical attention for like too long, and then somebody kind of noticed, I think it might have even been the director, noticed that like something was wrong, and then they rushed him to the hospital and he didn't make it. That's a tragic accident that set a lot of precedents in the industry to avoid something like that happening again, because all these prop masters now and all these armorers have a very specific set of guidelines that they have to follow with weapons on set in order to prevent dummy rounds or blanks from causing an accident or injury or, unfortunately death. The idea, to just start off from the top on what happened on Rust, the idea of live ammunition being anywhere near a movie set is mind-boggling to me, and mind-boggling to anybody that works in this industry. That is the part that nobody can see, like nobody can understand. Like, why were there bullets?
So let me ask you a question as someone who does not work in the industry.
Yeah.
So these guns aren't props. You guys are using real guns.
The guns are real guns. Yeah.
Why?
They look more real, and a lot of the times you need them to fire blanks to make the noise that a gun makes.
So it's not something you can add after.
Well, I think it might change now. I think now that, Dwayne Johnson came out and was like, we're not using real guns on sets anymore. I think the idea kind of leading up to this accident was a gun is basically a paperweight if there's no bullets in it. You know what I mean? If there's no real bullets. So you think if there's no live ammo anywhere near the set, then there's no risk of something like this happening. So, it's definitely something to consider and think about. It's like, but, can you take a rubber gun and like shoot it and have like the chamber move back and, or have it make a noise or have it make a muzzle flash? Maybe you can do some stuff in post, but the thing is, nobody would have ever expected something like this to happen. Obviously it did. So, we were wrong. We were all wrong about this. Yeah. But the fact that the person who is in charge of the guns is usually, in my experience, like a grizzly, old, angry prop guy, that has the guns so safe and locked up and doesn't let you anywhere near them and is like, will like bark at you if you come near.
So we're discussing the current case, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, this lady was very inexperienced, should not have been given the job that she was given. She should have had a lot more years of experience as just a prop master or an assistant prop master or whatever it is. But because I think her father is an armorer and she got the job through like nepotism basically, which it's pretty common in our industry, honestly, because it's kind of how you break in. It's like you have to know somebody. There's no like Glassdoor, like Monster.com, like job openings in this industry. Like everything's freelance and you kind of build your reputation up on word of mouth. And if a famous or very well reputable, like a highly reputable prop master or armorer says like, oh yeah, hire my daughter, she's great. Like people will do that. They shouldn't have though, because like that's someone who's responsible for like a dangerous weapon being on set. Her allowing live ammunition is insane. It's absolutely crazy. But I mean, it's, a lot of people on the internet and people that don't work on sets are asking the same question you asked, which is why are there real guns?
Right.
And I think it's definitely a question we should ask moving forward. It's like, obviously yes, we thought there was no way this could happen, but it did. So now we have to sort of face the consequences of that and look at what we're actually going to do about it. And I think that might be an option. There's solutions to every problem in our industry. There's always a way to figure it out. So yeah, we did it this way for a certain amount of time, but like maybe it's time to change that, because no movie or commercial or TV show is worth somebody dying over. You know what I mean? And like, especially in a situation where you already think all the safety practices are in place. And a lot of stuff was ignored to have what happened on Rust.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
So the protocol basically from the start is the prop master takes the gun. They decide in the scene with, collectively with the director or whatever, if we need to shoot blanks or if there's no ammunition in the gun whatsoever. In this case, because they were going through what's called a marking rehearsal. So basically you come in, you'll rehearse the scene, the actors will run their lines. A marking rehearsal is for the camera, where, you know, the most traditional marks being where the actors stand. But there's camera marks. There's like where the dolly might roll to. There's, in this case, it seems, the prop marks, where Alec Baldwin was pointing this gun, and the director of photography was sort of directing him in order for the camera to see the best possible angle of where to kind of draw the gun and where to hold it, right? So this is from his account. I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but
I saw he just gave an interview to ABC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about that interview yet at this point.
I think it could have waited. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a PR thing.
Yeah.
For him, for like an immediate rehabilitation for his career. And like, listen, I'm not one to defend actors. Like, actors usually, for me and for like the assistant directors, are nothing more than like an obstacle to get over. A lot of the times, especially if they're very famous, they have demands that you have to meet. But even ones that are less well known, because of their job and their role on a set, they don't operate in the day-to-day operations of they don't run the day-to-day operations of what goes on. So the idea of saying that this is, in my opinion, the idea of saying this is in any way Alec Baldwin's responsibility or fault is ludicrous, because there are specific regulations in place to make sure that we're not relying on an actor to make sure that like safety is being followed, safety rules and precautions are being followed. Do you know what I mean? So that would be like in your job if you were relying on the patients to know things that you know. You know what I mean?
They should, but no, I'm just kidding.
Sure. I mean, it'd be great if they did. That's the thing I keep saying about Alec Baldwin. It's like, it'd be great if he checked the gun, you know, and if he had the made sure the prop guy like checked the gun. But from his position, if the assistant director, who shouldn't have picked up the gun in the first place, it should have been the prop person. I don't know why he got his hands on it in the first place. The procedure is the prop person takes the gun, walks over to the assistant director, shows the assistant director, the first AD, which is the job my brother does. So like we've talked about this extensively, shows the first AD that the chamber is clear, because the first AD is responsible for set safety. That's their job. They keep everybody safe. They do safety meetings in the morning. If somebody has a safety worry, you go to the first AD. Like that's what you do. So he shows the first AD, says the chamber is clear. He walks over to the actor, shows the actor, chamber is clear. Okay, everybody, cold gun. Everybody, cold gun. And then everybody yells it out, so nobody has to worry. Everybody relaxes. You know, you go like, okay, no, don't put your earplugs in. You know, like don't worry about a gunshot. You know, if there's animals on set, you know, it doesn't matter because there's no bullets in the gun. It's fine. Everything's cool. So, or blanks, I should say, because there's never supposed to be bullets, as we talked about. That procedure was not followed. The AD walked out, picked the gun up off the cart, walked it over to Alec Baldwin, handed it to him, and said, "Cold gun." Didn't check it. Didn't follow any of the proper procedures. Announced that it was a cold gun. Had no idea, right? He would not have been able to guess either, I imagine, that there was live ammunition in the gun, because that's absolutely patently ridiculous, like I keep saying. But
now, for example, the bullets in the gun, can you tell by looking at them whether they're fake, live, like for someone like him, if he had opened it?
Yes. I think, I wouldn't say that an AD is a firearms expert by any stretch, but an armor or a prop master would be able to tell. Like right by checking with their eyes, for sure. But again, I mean, it's just, where was the prop master? Where was the armor? That's like one of my questions. Like if your guns are on set, you're right next to them every single time. You know, if your props and equipment are off your truck, on your cart by the set, they're your responsibility. You should be there. So I'm confused about how that went down too, because every armor I've ever worked with, every prop master that's in charge of guns I've ever worked with, is fanatical about the safety of the guns, where they are, who touches them, who gets to operate them. And a lot of times, for example, we used to give extras weapons, right? But with the extras, most of the time you can just give them rubber guns, because like they're not going to shoot them. You're not going to see them like work, like, you know, you're not going to see the mechanisms. But sometimes you have to give them, if you have like kind of more professional background actors like that have firearms experience or something, or you know, used to be in the army or whatever it is that you bring in to actually fire a gun. or a stunt guy, more likely most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those people are all handed real guns. So a lot of the times these prop masters are in charge of, you know, 10, 20, 30 weapons that are being live used on sets, you know, with blanks in them firing. So that's a lot of different weapons to make sure are checked, clean, safe, you know. It's not an easy job, and it's got a lot of responsibility. So to hire a 24-year-old,
is she 24?
Yeah, to hire a 24-year-old who's it's their second job as an armorer.
Yeah,
that's bonkers. You know, they were cutting costs, and like the people to me responsible from the top down are the person that would say, because I know you had my lovely sister-in-law, your cousin Nessie, on the show. She's a producer. She's a line producer, right, for commercials. So she, as you guys discussed on the episode, if your audience wants to go and listen to that, if you haven't, it's a great episode. I've listened to it myself. She's awesome. She, you know, as you guys discussed on that episode, she hires the crew, right? So she goes and she says, she either hires people the director wants, she hires people she knows and trusts and has worked with before, or come recommended, you know, especially with if the town is really busy. You don't, you know, all your usual people maybe are booked. You go and get recommendations, you know. So the person whose job it was on the set of Rust would have hired, say, the person who does my job, which is the production manager, the unit production manager in the case of a movie or a TV show. And that person then goes and fills a lot of the crew positions. So those two people are responsible for crewing up an inexperienced and insufficient crew on this job. The idea that a camera team walked off the job because of safety concerns,
I saw that,
is also kind of crazy.
Was that the day before?
The day before, yeah. Crazy. So that's also kind of crazy because crews go through a lot, man. You know, it's a tough gig, and I've seen camera crews, lighting crews, grip, electric camera, everybody, props, craft service. Like, I've seen those people go through hell and still come to work again the next day. So to have the idea of having a whole camera team walk off the job, something was seriously wrong. Yeah. It seems they were violating union rules left and right. Just even something as minor as, you know, and this is stuff I deal with when we travel for work, right? Like when we go to different cities. If you bring in an LA camera team, which I always like to do, because as much as, you know, and if you're a crew member in a different city and you're listening to this and you totally disagree, I get it. But this is the NFL here in Los Angeles. Like, everybody that works on crews in LA, they're the cream of the crop, you know, like this is the mecca of film and TV production, right? There's a lot of good people in other places, but a lot of times you want to go, you bring in a camera team from LA because they're good, they're solid, you know, they're all union members, and you know, they come highly recommended, like we talked about before. One of the union rules for camera people is you have to put them up in a certain level of hotel, and you have to make sure that, like, the camera union knows, like, where, you know, it's just basic kind of creature comfort, like living stuff to make sure that these companies these companies don't cut corners and put them up in like a flea bag Motel 6, you know what I mean? So these rules exist. So I guess they were in like a crappy hotel that was like too far away from the set. So that's like a complaint. A camera team's not going to leave because of that. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to bitch and moan to the producer, as they should, and the problem will get solved probably. But they also cited safety concerns for misfires of guns on the set. And if it's me, if one misfire happens, that prop master is getting replaced. Like, that it's a safety thing. You know what I mean? Like, nobody likes to fire people, nobody likes to replace people, but like, if I or Nessie or my brother or like anyone I know in the industry, if you think a crew member is not adequately addressing safety, that's it. They got to go. You know what I mean? Like, they have to go, because you don't want to be the person responsible for something like this happening. So the line producer and the production manager are at fault here. I'm not sure they're going to face any consequences, because it's like sort of tough. It's sort of a ethereal thing to prove, right? Because they can just go, well, we hired this person, they came recommended, I don't know, but they should have known better. Yeah. And then the first AD, it's insane to me that he went and picked up the firearm, and handed it to an actor and said "cold gun" without checking it. The fact that he picked it up at all is completely against the rules. You know, I understand that there's no way that he could possibly know that there was live ammunition on the set, because it's just something you would never even think could possibly happen. but my God, like that's just not smart. And I will say the reputation of this individual as a first AD was already one of like not being highly concerned with safety. So you know, it's a small business. A lot of people know each other. I have talked to a few people that worked with him, and I hear he's a bit of a knucklehead. So he does something like this, yeah, he's definitely a knucklehead, like not smart. I'm sure he's like retained counsel at this point, and like we probably won't be hearing from him in the same kind of, you know, late night interview special that we heard from Alec Baldwin, which I really thought was very strange. Like selling it like a primetime like news show.
I feel like it was too soon. I feel like you know, they're still investigating. Yeah,
it's an active investigation. And there's a lot we don't know, and like a lot of this is speculation, you know. It's just what I'm not speculating about is I know whose job it is to keep people safe. And that means to me, if that's your responsibility and people were not kept safe, then you didn't do the right thing. You know, you weren't responsible for the thing you're supposed to be responsible for.
So let me ask you this. So going back to Brandon Lee, obviously there was, even though they didn't maybe criminally charge people, there was like, what was it I was reading? Like malpractice kind of suits. Do you think that definitely will happen?
I think a lot of people are going to get sued. Yeah. I think Alec Baldwin's probably going to get sued. The thing that I've been arguing on Twitter for basically like 3 weeks. Are
you still banned?
I got my account back.
Yeah, you're not in jail anymore.
I'm not in Twitter jail anymore. But you know what? I stand by what I said. But yeah, the thing with the Twitter algorithm is like you could be being like a horrible homophobe, racist, misogynist, but if you like don't use certain trigger words, you're like not going to get banned from Twitter. But like because I told a guy to punch himself in the dick, they were like, that's self-harm. And I'm like okay, that's whatever, doesn't matter. So I've been arguing with these people, and the thing is I see their point, because what it is they think, the more reasonable ones think, he held the gun, he pulled the trigger, this lady died. You're never supposed to point a gun at somebody, like, et cetera, et cetera. But there's nuance to this. You know, there's people whose job it is to prevent this from happening, and it's not the actor. Right. So the other half of people that I'm really going at on the internet, which I know is pointless. You know, you're screaming into a vacuum. You're never going to change these people's minds. But because this situation hits close to home for me, I see them say this stuff on the internet, and I just can't help it. Like, I have to weigh in. And these people are firearm and gun enthusiasts that have an issue with Alec Baldwin's statements in the past about gun control and gun safety. So they want him to be responsible for this. It's not about the lady that died and like that was like somebody's wife and somebody's mother. They'll use that as like a straw man argument, but what it is, they want Alec Baldwin to be at fault for this because he doesn't share their political beliefs, which is
stupid,
ridiculous. You know, but you can see it. You see their agenda on the internet. You see what they're saying and why they're saying it. And then you go to their profile and lo and behold, America first, make America great again. I want my guns. Like, cool. Like, vaccines are fake. Like, of course they're these people, right? But it's in such poor taste and in such bad faith that they take to the internet to politicize an issue that I'm telling them factually is not the responsibility of the dude that they don't like, that's a public figure, and it's not up for debate, and they don't care that I have the experience and anyone involved in making movies and TV shows and commercials is agreeing with me. It doesn't matter to them. You know, the facts of the case don't matter. They just want this to be true.
And that could play a role into maybe why Alec Baldwin felt like he had to say something. Of course it did. Yeah, definitely. And being harassed by paparazzis everywhere. Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, he already, I don't think he had a great relationship with paparazzis before this.
So I think in that sense, I understand maybe why he did it. Totally. The timing is bad, but I feel like he's being harassed compared to everybody else. For sure.
Listen, at the end of the day, like I said, I feel very little sympathy for actors a lot of the time. You know, it's like these are people who probably, you know, it's not my job, and there's a lot of ways I don't understand it. And it's a very difficult job to get, you know, like to put yourself in a position to go and audition and get rejected 1 billion times just to like finally land a movie, and then like you know, Alec Baldwin's career is like 1 in a million, right? Like to have a long and successful career in movies. But they're not they're not the people on a set that like work the hardest. You know what I mean? Like there's people there that first in, last out. They carry heavy equipment all day, and they're paid at their union minimums, and they have to fight for those minimums, and there's strikes being threatened, and they're the working man. You know, they're the person who like built on the backbone of them, built on their backs are these productions. You know, and you see the nice, softly lit, beautiful person on the screen that like comes from like the product finally gets put together. But it's not glamorous behind the scenes. Like it's hard work. It's a lot of manual labor. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of brain power. It's a lot of long hours, right? So the last person I feel sympathy for most of the time is the actor. They get a cushy trailer. They get their food brought to them. They get paid millions of dollars, and then they go home to their like huge houses and like they're fine.
Right.
But this is a man who has now killed somebody, and his career is probably over, at least for the foreseeable future. So it's difficult for me, and because I know it's not his responsibility, it's difficult for me to not feel sympathy for him, because, and it's like, it takes a lot for me to feel sympathy for an actor a lot of the time, but I think he seems genuinely broken up about it. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to be responsible for that. It's insane, you know, like to think about like what must be going through your head, you know? And to have people on the internet blaming him for this when he knows that like it wasn't his job to. I'll say this too. A lot of people are making this point, which is stupid, and I'm just going to debunk it for all your listeners right now. Everybody that says, but he was a producer on the film. So my sister-in-law, your cousin Nessie, is a line producer. That's the job that's responsible for this kind of stuff, where you can say, but you were a producer on the film and this happened on your watch. When you make an actor a producer on the film, it's a creative producer. It's a fluff title a lot of the time. It helps break out the residuals differently when the movie comes out, and it sort of gives them power and carte blanche to like make executive decisions about the creative content that is going on. They don't hire people. They're not involved in who does this where and what time people show up and the kind of the day-to-day nuts and bolts of what goes on. So I guess like the best comparison I could make, say like in your field, right? If somebody was a nurse and they have like all this medical training and their job is to attend to a patient, and if for some reason there was another job title called nurse that was completely administrative and they didn't have medical training, it's just kind of a weird, unfortunate like title issue. You know, it's like it's not the same job. Like he just doesn't do that. You know, so you can say all you want that because he's a producer, he should have like been responsible for this, but it's not that kind of producer. You know, and everybody that works in the industry knows that. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what do you think will happen? What do you think is going to be? Do you think there will be criminal charges in this case at least? Or?
I personally think that the first AD is criminally at fault for what happened, and the armorer is criminally at fault for what happened. I also think the production manager, the unit production manager, and the line producer are criminally at fault, but I doubt that they'll get criminally charged. I think those two people will. I think that, they're already trying to spin a narrative. They've already retained counsel, and they're already, saying different things and trying to push blame, which I guess I get. It's like you don't want to be the person at fault for this tragedy, but yeah, I think criminal charges will be brought up for sure. There's no point in bringing everything I'm saying will be proven right when the sheriff's department in Arizona goes, yeah, we're not bringing Alec Baldwin up on criminal charges, because there's no way to. It just wasn't his fault, Civil charges, maybe though. It sounds to me that he seems to have a relationship with her husband, and it's I think I'm not sure her husband blames him, but what happens when you get a lawyer and the lawyer goes, listen, like, we need to go and get you some money for A, to pay me, and B, because she was a DP in Hollywood, she was well paid, and they probably have a lifestyle and well earned, like that's not an easy job, especially for a woman to get. There's very few female DPs, mainly because DPs come up through typically either as through the lighting department, they become a gaffer, then they become a DP, or more commonly, they come up through the camera department, like they're camera ACs, assistant cameraman, the title is actually assistant cameraman. But now it's, I guess, should be camera person, because there is more and more women breaking into that side of the business, and there's just not a lot of female DPs. Like, I've worked with maybe 2 in my career, and that family's owed at least the amount of money that she was going to bring in over the course of her career. Somebody needs to pay that. And I could see a lawyer being like, we got to sue Alec Baldwin. I'm sorry. Like, I know he was very apologetic. I know you don't think it's his fault, but it's just part of it. You know what I mean? It might just be part of the case. And like, I guess you can understand that on some level.
Yeah.
But I hope criminal charges are brought up against the first AD, to be honest with you, because like I told you, my brother is a first, and I know for a fact that in a billion years, this doesn't happen. If he's the first AD on that movie set, it just doesn't happen. And I'm not sure who knew about the live ammunition, but anyone that knew about it and didn't immediately say something, they're at fault as well. And I'm talking from the line producer down to the production assistants. Anybody that knew that there was live ammo on that set and didn't immediately cause a massive fuss is also at fault.
And let me ask you this. So if you guys have guns or just on any set, do you guys have paramedics? Do you guys hire paramedics?
Yeah, we always have like some form of medical professional there.
Yeah. So it sounds from what you said with Brandon Lee and then now with her that they were there for a really long time before
that part's weird to me.
Yeah.
They cleared the set right away, which is obviously like what you should do, and they let the medics come in. Typically, a set medic is either a trained paramedic, a former nurse, like there's a lot of kind of different backgrounds that make a set medic, but they have to have a certain level of medical training, and there is a union for them specifically they're in a union as set medics, right? So that all that stuff has to be cleared and
Sorry, I had an itch.
Oh, that's cool. I thought you were like, I was like, your watch is on your other hand.
No, I just had an itch.
They have to meet a certain standard of training, and they need to know how to do. It's not just like a guy who's taken a CPR course. You know what I mean? Like they're real medical professionals. Like you could do it. It's actually a pretty cushy gig most of the time, because most of the time people don't get murdered. So. Typically, like, the joke is like the set medic is just the guy who hands out Advil. You know what I mean? It's like when you have a headache, or gives you a Band-Aid if you like cut yourself. And like the thing is this industry is pretty safe. Like we have a lot of safety precautions in place that prevent stuff like this from happening. A lot of stuff had to go wrong for this to happen, and a lot of very atypical things had to happen for this situation to go down. I think we could shoot movies for another 1,000 years and this never happens again if we don't make any changes to our protocols. But something like this happens, like maybe you should. But yeah, the fact that the medics were in there without immediately getting, I don't know, maybe it was where they were. It seemed like a pretty remote location. Was remote, yeah. And then like a helicopter came in, but like,
how long did it take?
How long did it take? I'm confused about what happened there. And I hope, this is again purely speculative, but I just hope that it wasn't downplayed and like immediately, because I'm sure the first AD was like standing there being like, no, I mean, she's probably fine, right? Like everything's probably fine. I hope that the paramedics or the set medic or whoever was attending to her didn't screw up. I really hope that that's the case.
Because you would have that. I was gonna say they're probably gonna look into their documentation as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably almost certainly trained medical professionals, but like I feel a very quick response most of the time from medical professionals. We need to get this person to a hospital. You know what I mean? Like that's obviously your chances of dying increase a lot the more time you're not at a hospital, right? So that, when I heard that, I thought that was quite strange. I heard a story. A friend of mine was working as an AD up in Seattle, and he told me a story about a guy they brought in to do, I guess, have you ever seen those planes that they don't really have like engines? They're like gliders, and they like, you can like drop them off the side of a mountain, and the pilots can kind of like use the wings and the momentum to like stay in the air for a long time. So they were doing this commercial where it was like, the Ford F-150, say, or whatever it is, the Toyota Tacoma can like pull anything, and the gag, the stunt in in the commercial was the truck pulls this glider. The glider like takes off, and like you get this beautiful like aerial shot of like the glider flying. The glider pilot not used to working on sets, and there's a lot of like time pressure and general pressure that as a professional you sort of learn to absorb and make sure it doesn't make you make stupid decisions. You know, you and Nessie talked about that on the episode you did with her, where it's like it's about one of the biggest parts of the job for a lot of us is staying cool under pressure and like not panicking and making dumb decisions. If someone doesn't have a lot of set experience, like in the case of this gentleman that was the glider pilot, they might try to go above and beyond for the sake of the shoot, and not be as safe as they should. And I guess in this case, the glider pilot took off when he shouldn't have. He didn't gain enough speed, but he didn't want to like keep shutting the chute down and like having to reset because all these people are standing around looking at you, kind of waiting, you know, and time is money. So he took off when he shouldn't have. He crashed, and unfortunately, he died. That kind of pressure, that like, you know, I've seen it get to people, and I've seen people make silly decisions because of that. And I hope that this set medic wasn't inexperienced on a set and didn't want to downplay the situation. I hope that didn't happen. But also, on that note, ADs are responsible for keeping the shoot going and keeping it on schedule. Obviously, their number one responsibility, as everyone's is safety. You know, everyone should be safe all the time. Like when you're working with heavy equipment, when you're working with weapons, you know, when you're working with stunts. But they also have to keep the day moving, and they're all a certain personality type where they go like, "Come on, we got to get this done." So I can see an AD walking out being like, "I got to get this gun in there. We got to do this rehearsal." Like, da da da. It's very stupid. It's very dumb that he did that, but he's in a hurry. You know, we're always in a hurry. So,
and wasn't it like towards the end they were wrapping up, I think?
Apparently, yeah. And it was probably one of the later, like the last scenes of the day or whatever it is. And people are tired, and, you know, you're working multiple 12, 14, 16-hour days in a week.
Yeah,
and
I don't know how you guys do it.
It's not safe. That's one of the least safe things about it is the hours, you know. It's like the amount of times I've been driving home, and I'm like legally drunk because of like fatigue, you know what I mean? And it's like, or it's 7:00 in the morning. You've shot all night because you can't fake night if you're outside. You know what I mean? It's got to be nighttime. Yeah. So, you know, we've shot all night, and I'm driving home, and I'm like in morning traffic driving home, and I'm like, I should not be behind the wheel of a car right now, you know. And it's like the whole crew's doing that. It happens. Like there's stories every left, right, and center of people driving off the freeway or, you know, falling asleep at the wheel. That's the least safe part of our industry for sure. You know, is the off the clock stuff. I've been present for a lot of explosions, stunts, firearms. I've always felt safe because of all the things we do to ensure everybody's safety. You know what I mean? It's that stuff is important to people that know what they're doing. You know, my uncle was an AD for a long time, and he has a million stories of like, yep. And then I said, no, we're shutting the shoot down because the helicopter, it's too windy. I'm looking at this helicopter that we have in this scene, and it's too windy. It's going all over the place. I'm not rolling the camera on that. Like, we're done. Yeah. That's a good AD. That's what a good AD should do, you know, absorb the pressure from above the line and from the people that want to get the stuff in the can and make their movie. Basically, the people whose money it is, they don't want you to shut down. It's going to cost them money, you know? So, a good AD will absorb that pressure and go like, I don't care. I'm not doing it. It's not safe, you know? And for an AD to not only not do that, but to be actively involved in the thing that caused the accident, to be an integral part of this accident happening, blows my mind, because every good AD is safety first. Every single one, you know? And it's, a lot of times it seems silly and redundant, you know, to say certain things and have these safety meetings, because it's like, come on, we all go to work every day and we're all fine. But then something like this happens and you go like, this is why, like, this is a good reminder. The big one was, the big story when I first got in the industry was the Sarah Jones accident. I don't know if you ever heard about this. No. They were shooting a documentary about one of the Allman Brothers, or not a documentary, a fictional film about one of the Allman Brothers, and they were shooting on a train track. And they had all the camera stuff up on the train track, but they didn't control the train, which is as insane to me as like having live ammunition on a train. If you're shooting on train tracks, you have to have control of the train. It's just like a rule, you know. It's like we have a guy with a walkie inside the thing. Okay, send the train. It's like that famous scene in Stand By Me, right, where they're like walking across the train tracks and they see the train coming. There is 0% chance they didn't have full control of that train. You know, communication with the conductor or whatever is going on. You know, however, I don't know, however trains work. You know what I mean? But they didn't have control of the train. This camera assistant, Sarah Jones, went, I guess, to try to grab a piece of her camera equipment to like get off the track as everybody ran off the track, and she got caught there and the train hit her and she died. And it's like that, like, you know, this is the kind of stuff that happens if you don't follow the procedures in place that we have specifically for a reason. It's like, what happens if you start cutting corners at work? People die. You know, it happens in our industry too, like not as easily and readily as if you're not doing the things you should do. Pushing the right medications or like whatever it is. But you can't, when you break the rules that are in place to keep people safe, people are unsafe and people get hurt and die, you know? And it's like, the rules are there. You know, the rules are there. And the procedures are there. You just got to follow them to keep everyone safe and not cut corners. And it's almost always a money thing. You know, they cut corners for money. They try and save money, which nobody should be dying over that. You know what I mean? It's very, very tragic. And all the debate aside on the internet and whose fault it was and this and that and guns and gun laws and gun safety and are we using real guns? Why was there live ammunition? Like, this lady's dead. You know what I mean? Like, she had a kid and a husband and she was just at work, you know, trying to shoot a movie. You know, it's not, she wasn't on the front lines in Afghanistan or, you know, she didn't take a job that should have had the risk of her getting shot and killed. It's just, that's not the position she was in. And there's no way she knew that there was live ammunition anywhere near the set. And yeah, it's just very unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate because it's so preventable if everybody does the right thing. Yeah.
So it should be interesting to see what happens in the next few years with the, you know, malpractice suits that I'm sure are coming. And then you can fill me in a few years to see if any changes actually happen.
I hope that there's positives from this. I really do. I hope that it's at least a reminder to all of us in this industry that safety is super important. And while it might seem silly to say all this stuff every day and repeat ourselves and, you know, yell, cold gun, check the chamber, all this stuff, or like live fire, or like whatever. Everybody's parroting it and yelling it around on the set, and sometimes it does seem silly. It's like, all right, we heard you. But then something like this happens, and it's a reminder that we all need to be super careful because you don't want to get hurt, but you also really don't want to be responsible for someone else getting hurt. So
or dying.
Safety's no accident, guys. You know, keep being safe. I don't care what job you do. You know, just make sure you follow the rules and procedures that are there to make sure nobody gets hurt, because everybody should be able to go home to their family at the end of the day. And like that, Halyna Hutchins was not able to do that day. And I think that's what we should always remember. That's the thing that happened. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and filling us in. I learned a lot, you know, because as a person who's not in the industry, it's like, well, why would you use a real gun? But you described why. And, but I mean, it's a valid question. Honestly, like, maybe we shouldn't. You know, maybe we take this as an opportunity to look at everything differently and come at this in a completely different way, because we really need to make sure this never happens again. You know, it's very important because nobody should be dying over this stuff. And it's good to understand the different layers that you described, so that we can, for us who don't know, understand why maybe it's not his fault or whose fault, or, you know. And then just bringing up what you brought up of your friend that worked on what was it, the paragliding? Yeah, the glider, whatever, to, you know, I never thought of that. Like, he felt under pressure. So it's like, if I was a nurse coming in, I would probably be nervous. Well, there's a lot of people standing around looking at you. Being like, you're holding us up. Like, what's going on? You feel it. I know exactly the pressure. I would stress out. Oh, if you could bottle that pressure, it's a lot. I know what it feels like, and we all do. But you learn to absorb it, and it's different kinds of pressure. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in situations where you're trying to like attend to somebody medically in your job, I'm sure there's a specific type of pressure that you know of that you can feel, absorb, and then continue to do your job in like a safe and controlled way. And then just cry later. Right, and then just you know, force it down somewhere. You know, drink it away, whatever you do. But the idea is, that's pressure you're used to.
Yeah.
You know, the pressure that guy was used to was like gliding through the air like that. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But he's not used to that other kind of pressure, that set pressure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, just don't ever let that make you cut corners. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, that was fun.
I really, really learned a lot, and I
Awesome.
know this is going to be a very popular episode,
cool.
especially because
everything's going on.
Everything's going on, and obviously he just gave an interview.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, to say the least, and unfortunate, but you know, I hope her family's going to be okay in the long run. But
it's a morbid topic, you know, and it is very unfortunate that. I mean, I've obviously wanted to come on the podcast for a while. We were trying to figure out what to talk about. And it's like, I wish this wasn't what we were talking about, to be honest with you. But it now needs to be talked about. And everybody needs to have these conversations about who actually is responsible for this stuff. And that's the thing I'm fighting with people on the internet about is it's important to figure out who is responsible for this stuff so we can prevent it from happening again in the future. You know, don't just assign blame based on like who you want to be responsible. It's about who is responsible. Yeah. And honestly, what I will say is, you know, a lot of people have said, well, he should have checked the gun. He's got a lot of experience. Yeah. Honestly, I bet every single actor from now on is going to check that gun, but he should not find anything in there. Like if everything already happened the way it was supposed to. So I know George Clooney went on a podcast and was like, I always check the gun. You should check the gun. He's not wrong, but we don't want to rely on actors to make sure everything's safe. You know, we want to rely on the professionals in that area to make sure everything's safe. Trained exactly. But yeah, I think it could make things change, and I think we should be even safer than we already are. But it's I hope some change does come from it. But I hope the people who are responsible are held responsible, and my heart goes out to that to Miss Hutchins' family for sure, because this I'm sure came as such a shock for them. Yeah. So that's I think the important thing for everyone to remember.
All of us were shocked. We thought Brandon Lee would be like the last one. You know?
Yeah. I've talked to so many prop masters trying to get the full story of the whole Brandon Lee thing, and they all recount that same thing. You know, and it's that they all carry that around with them. Every good experienced prop master carries around the Brandon Lee story, and now they're going to carry this around too. Yeah. You know, because they go, I'm not going to be that guy. But obviously, it's happened again now, and it's very, very sad.
And I think too, you know, speaking of someone being 24 years old, when you discuss of age, you know, things are forgotten with the new generation. And
so, when I was 24, I was like getting people coffee. Yeah. Nobody was letting me in charge of guns. You know what I mean? So
she wasn't even born when this happened, right? The Brandon Lee?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's probably not. It's just an afterthought versus what.
Well, that's what happens, right? Yeah. You know, you forget, you know, like the collective consciousness sort of forgets this stuff. Yeah. And they're not super aware of it. But like, you know, my fiance is an AD, and obviously I don't want anyone to get hurt, but the last thing in the world I want is for her to come home and say, somebody got hurt on my watch. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be her fault. Yeah. If she's a first AD and she's like running the set. My brother's an AD. I don't want him to come home and say, this happened on my watch. You know what I mean? So everyone just needs to be careful, man. Yeah. It's just, we're like, we always make the joke, like, it's not heart surgery, guys. We're just shooting a commercial here. But then people go and die, you know? It's like, this is not an industry where people should be dying, you know, over some dumb movie. And most of the time, you're not working on Goodfellas. You know, you're working on some piece of shit TV show because you want to make money and go home. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always for the art, you know? Sometimes it is, and that's great. Yeah. It's awesome when that happens. I've had some of the best experiences of my life working on TV shows that were good, that I loved, you know? And then you could feel that on the set, the cast, the crew, everybody's really like there. They're driving towards the same goal, and they're all happy to be making a piece of art in a collaborative way. Most of the time, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of making something to put on a screen, and you're there for your paycheck, and nobody should be unsafe in those situations. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So we're going to sign off now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
That was episode 80 of the Purposely Curious podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on most podcast platforms, and follow us on social media at Purposely Curious on Instagram and at Purposely C Pod on Twitter. That's Purposely, the letter C, Pod. Until next time, you know what to do.